today. And let's begin with Mike Griffith, and then we'll go to Dean Legge.
Hey, Coach, I guess practice number 2, I would just ask you how it went in lieu of an opening statement.
I thought it went well. I mean, they always seem to start a lot of energy. We don't have the pads on yet, so it's Combine Olympics out there. I mean, who runs the fastest, looks the prettiest, doesn't like to hit anybody. They tend to look the best on these days. And then we put pads on Saturday, and we start to take on a little bit of a character and a little more demeanor of our team. I mean, I've been really pleased with the spirit and the energy in practice, but I don't know that I ever haven't been in 2 days, so it's just coach speak, I guess. But we had better weather today than I expected, so we actually got to go outside some of the practice. Probably could have got the whole thing outside, but we had most of it prepared to go inside, and I want to get outside as much as we can, just because it's that time of year and we need to. But guys practiced hard. It's just hard to measure football in shorts.
Kirby, I wanted to ask you about the quarterbacks, how they're coming along. And secondly, on that same front, with Todd being there now, this 2.5 month period with JT Daniels, what can y'all accomplish? We've talked about this a lot. I did want to ask it again, though. What's the difference between now that he's here versus last year he wasn't, et cetera?
I don't know how to measure that. I mean, they're just light years ahead of where they were. I mean, we didn't have this last year, so I can't even answer that question because we didn't know anything last year. We didn't know who we were. We had no identity. We didn't even know who JT Daniels was right now. And we're a lot different offensively. I mean, they're doing things that they weren't doing until maybe halfway through the season last year, and they're doing lots of them. I mean, we got some young wideouts swimming. We've got some experienced wideouts that are still swimming because they're trying to learn multiple positions. Last year we weren't able to be very multiple because Jermaine Burton learned one position. We're trying to get Jermaine Burton to know both sides. He was the Z last year. He needs to be the Z and the X. There's just so many little things that they're so much further ahead as far as knowledge. And I don't know, since I've been here, it seems like we've had a really experienced defense a couple times, and I feel like we've had a really experienced offense. Maybe that the one year when Fromm, it seemed like a lot of the guys were back, but we didn't have our wideouts back. So it's pretty unique to have that much experience on offense. And I mean, it showed for 2 days. We've been behind defensively and been ahead offensively.
All right, let's go to Chip Towers and Seth Emerson.
Coach, I'm fascinated so far anyway, just seeing Lavassier Carroll on the defensive side of the ball. Just wonder if you give some background on that in terms of that was always a plan. Obviously, he's wearing 12 and Brock is too. Does that mean this, he's committed to this side of the ball for now, or just trying to get through spring practice? What can you tell me about what he's looked like so far?
It's experimental. We recruited him as a running back. We're really deep at the running back position. He's probably going to be a factor on our team on special teams because we think he's really fast. He's embraced the position. He's made some good plays. He's had some bad plays. He's not played this position. So to put him out there on some experienced wideouts and some guys who played a lot of football is probably not fair to him. But that's how you grow and that's how you get better, by failing. And I've been around a lot of good running backs. I've had running backs that I signed, other places I've recruited that texted me and said, man, I wish I had played corner based on what these guys are getting paid and how many of them are getting paid in the NFL. The shelf life of a corner is much longer than a back, and there's a lot more corners active in the NFL than backs. So when you look at the case of those 3 guys that worked out yesterday, LC comes in a lot of the same length, speed parameters. He has a lot of the same qualities that those guys have. What he doesn't have is experience, and he's embraced that role. I would not say that it's permanent. I would say that it's a spring experiment. We'll go from there.
Thank you.
Kirby, I wanted to ask about outside linebackers and their roles on the field. In the old days of the 3-4, you'd have a strong side and a weak side, and they'd be the main guys. Now with more nickel and dime being used, you have such talented outside linebackers. Are you looking for more creative ways to get them on the field and keep them on the field?
I wouldn't say we're looking for more creative ways. I'm saying we've already done it. So if you studied our defense really hard, there's packages where 3 outside linebackers are on the field. There's 2 outside linebackers on the field, a lot of snaps if they're the best 2 players. And then there's 1 sometimes. So yes, we're always looking for more creative ways, but we've already been looking for more creative ways. And that room's not as deep as it was. So I don't know like where your barometer is, but when you think about Aziz leaving and Jermaine being gone, it's quite different in that room. And there's not as many guys in there. Of course, I never know who y'all are counting. You know, I don't know if you're counting a guy that's injured or maybe a guy's playing inside backer. I don't know who they are, but you know, Adam is not a normal outside backer. He does a lot of different things. He's playing nickel star for us now, and he still plays outside backer some on third down. And then you got Bill, MJ's injured, and Nolan playing there. So we're growing at that position, but we're not as deep as we were. And Chaz is coming along and repping there some as well. It's a mid-year enrollee.
Let's go to Mark Weiser and then Anthony Dasher.
Kirby, following up on kind of that same subject, what are you looking for from Nolan Smith to keep improving as a pass rusher, and how important is his development as well as others with Aziz moving on?
I'm looking for everybody on the defense to improve. You know, we have to create pass rush. We have to create havoc. We have to do those same things. I thought last year was probably one of our best years ever in terms of sack production, and Dan has done a good job making that a priority by the way he schemes the defense and the way he calls the defense. And we had productive rushers, but a lot of that was, what he called and trying to scheme to get guys one-on-one. Trevon's the guy that's going to have a big year for us. And not only is he replacing Malik, but in a lot of ways he's replacing Aziz. And I think everybody just assumes with Aziz being gone that it's like Nolan's job. It's not like that for us, because 60-70% of the snaps, Trevon is Aziz and Nolan is Aziz. They're just, one's left and one's right. So both those guys play defensive end a lot.
Hey, Coach, good to see you. From the time that JT announced he was coming back, what kind of steps is he taking from the standpoint of asserting himself as a leader? Stuff like organizing extra work with receivers, things like that. And has there been a situation where all the returning quarterbacks kind of sharing that responsibility?
I think the wideouts like to throw more than even the quarterbacks. JT does a good job with those guys, but there's been several Saturdays I've stopped in prior to spring practice starting, and they're in there throwing, doing things on their own. They just like to go in there and throw. We didn't have a lot of throwing sessions. We wanted to get away from football, and the NCAA has given us a lot of latitude with 10 hours now instead of 8 hours a week, that we get a lot of football time with our players to walk through, and they choose to go throw on their own, and those wideouts really enjoy it, embrace it. I know Carson Brock and JT and Stetson, all those guys have been out there to throw on their own. But he's a really good leader, and I think the fact that he's come back and he's had a little more time, he never got a chance to really get to know these guys, because when he showed up, we're in COVID, he wasn't playing, then he was playing, then the year was over. So he's just now kind of embracing the relationship with those guys.
Let's go to Jake Rowe and Jed May.
Kirby, I know you've got your eyes on these guys through winter workouts, January, February, and all that stuff. But how easy is it to tell once you get them out there, you get them working, to know who has been actually putting in the work, who has had a couple of good months in the program, in the off-season program, and who's kind of made steps forward, and also kind of, I guess, can you tell that from any of your young players?
Young being mid-year, it's hard to tell. The biggest discrepancy in our mid-year enrollees and our young players is usually strength at point of attack. They're just not strong. And, I'm not going to call names, but we got a lot of guys out there that are mid-year enrollees that they're just, they may be talented enough, but they're not ready to take on a Justin Schaefer or Jamari Saylor or a George Pickens or whoever it is, Jordan Davis. I mean, they're not going to walk out there and be able to do that. That's what the off season's for. And what you start to see is that guy that's in his second and third year take on that role of a Zion Logue or a Nas, a guy that's Tate Routt, somebody that's been there and been in the program, where you say, oh man, that guy, he's ready to take another step because he's gotten stronger. He's been there. He's realized that maybe the recruiting rankings weren't as good as what they thought they were, and they knew they had to get to work. But most of those guys that are mid-years are just starting to experience that.
Yeah, Kirby. I wanted to ask you about Jamil Adai. When Lewis was up here the other day, he was saying that he brings a lot of energy and getting players hype onto the practice field. Is that something you've noticed, I guess, through these first few practices? And is that something that played a role into wanting to bring him onto the staff?
No, it didn't play a role. I mean, I don't get into the. I mean, I interview the coach and see what the coach knows, see how he recruits, call people who've worked with him, but whether he's a hype machine or a cheerleader or yelling and screaming, that's not my interest level. I'm a lot more interested in his relationship with the players, how he treats the players. Can he develop the players? Does he have a skill set to coach them? And that's what I was impressed with Jamal by, is his demeanor. He's very intelligent. He thinks things out before he says them, and he's done a tremendous job gaining the trust of those players while also learning a pretty complicated defense. It's not like he just walked in and knew how to do it, and we're going to do it his way. I mean, we're going to do things the way we do things, and he's going to help bring some knowledge into that. And he's got a lot of energy on the practice field, and I think that's great, but that's not what it was about for us.
Okay, let's go to Vance Levy, and then we'll go to the red and black, either Sarah or Jake, either one. Let's go ahead with Vance first.
Hey, Kirby, what's it like having you and Will back on the practice field together, and what's he bring to the table? Obviously a lot of experience.
Yeah, he's probably the guy I lean on the most in terms of coaching the coaches and just drill selection and, hey, how did you do this? How did y'all do this? Did y'all do this period first, that period first? Trying to find new ways to make our program better. And I like a lot having him out there, and I like having him in the meetings, because it's not the skill set of coaching. He's certainly a confident coach and very competent, but it's a lot more for me, just the way I know he's done things a lot of different ways. And when you're out there and in between drills or a drill's going on, and you can walk over there and say, hey, how did y'all do this? Is there a better way? What do you think about this? It's helpful. It certainly breeds confidence, and it gives you more ways to do things.
Okay, red and black.
Hi, Kirby. Kind of going back to the leadership you talked about earlier, have there been any leaders that you've noticed kind of stepping up vocally during practice this week that you've been happy to see or even surprised to see?
No, I wouldn't say surprised. I mean, we spend so much time with these guys in the off season that it's impossible to say, oh man, where'd he come from? I mean, we had 8 or 9 6 a.m. workouts, and the guys were out there grinding in the stadium in 43-degree weather and working. So, like, the leaders are the ones that are leading even then. And it's not like somebody's just popping up new. I think guys are growing more confident. Kobe stood out to me. He's been a guy that really is a tremendous leader and has taken on a more vocal role. And I think that's big. Obviously, offensively, we got a lot of leaders over there.
All right, Connor Riley.
Yeah. Hey, Kirby, I wanted to ask you about Keely Ringo. He had surgery, I think, last August or September. Where is he at physically, and how do you think he handled his first year at Georgia, just given the difficulties he had thrown at him?
As far as the surgery, he's still getting up to speed. He is he's cleared to go, and he's fortunate for us now, not fortunate then. He was able to get the repair done to get recovery time. But to think that you're going to sit out and not go out there and go against a guy running 21, 22 miles an hour and be able to just walk out there and go just because you're fast, that's not the case. He's got a lot of confidence to gain in our system. He's got a lot to learn in our system. You know what? He's dedicated to learning it. He's not shying away from it. I think there's been a lot of hype around Keely, and I think for his sake, he has to work. He has to decide that I'm going to go work really hard, and I'm going to live up to my expectations and not everybody else's, because the position he's playing is just like a 300 batting average. You fail 7 out of 10, and you're a Hall of Famer in baseball, and it's hard out there. It's tough. I mean, we saw it with Tyson and Stokes this year. They'll both be high draft picks, and they had they had some tough competition, and he's finding that out day to day. All our corners are. So I'm proud of the way Keely took on this year, because a lot of guys get injured and they check out. He never checked out. He checked in. He sat in the front of the meeting. He answered questions every day, but he's not where he needs to be.
All right, we're going to take 3 more questions. Let's go to David Pascal, and then we'll just open it up for the last 2. David.
Kirby, I guess this is a follow-up to what Jake was asking about mid-years. I mean, they're so prevalent now, and whether it's your time in Athens or Tuscaloosa before that, have you ever had a player that maybe through like the first 5 spring workouts, which I guess would be that first full pad, have you ever had someone through 5 practices that you're just like, this is a guy we can count on? I know this guy's going to play this year a ton.
Oh, not that I can remember. No, I've had him where it was like he's going to be asserted in a position he's not ready to play, but we better go ahead and assert him. I mean, I've had it that way. He wasn't ready, but he got thrust into that because there was no one else by default. And you know, we're not very deep at DB, but that's not going to be the case. We've got guys returning that have been here. It's not like a mid-year is going to be. Well, mid-year might win the job, but they're not going to be thrust into it. But I have been in situations before where it was like, well, we don't have anybody else. They're going to have to play because we're so thin. I've been very fortunate to be at some deep places. And there have been guys that you said, you know what, he's going to start on some special teams. He can move, he can run. He's really intelligent. And we got some of those guys out there right now.
Kirby, can I follow up on Adam Anderson? I think I heard you say he was playing the star. Can you talk about some of the experimenting? I know you said you were moving him around a little bit.
Yeah, he's basically when you're an outside backer, you are a star. So I know that's really complicated for you guys. And Seth said that, you know, in the old system of outside backers, you had a strong and a weak. In a 3-4 system, you have 2 outside backers. Well, every snap we play 3-4, we have a star that is an outside backer. So Mark Webb was an outside backer last year on 50% of the snaps. Well, that's what Adam Anderson is. So if you're going to rush him 50% of the time, would you rather rush Mark Webb or Adam Anderson? So you have to build your defense around a structure of what you want to do. They both have great strengths. Their strengths are different. And we think that he can help us from a rush standpoint. What we're experimenting with right now is him having to cover because it gives us the luxury of playing 4 DBs instead of 5. And it accentuates our lack of DB, but it accentuates our strength at rush guys if we're able to play with him. So we're challenging him, asking him to do a lot that if we had to play a game tomorrow, we wouldn't ask him to do all these things, but we're trying to teach him and have a growth mindset with him.
Kirby, at what point did data, big data, whatever you want to call it, GPS, et cetera, start becoming a thing in college football or in your life? And how do you not, for lack of a better term, over concentrate on data points that you see a bunch of rather than just traditional coaching?
First time I remember hearing about it was around the national championship FSU had. Jimbo got big into it, and we were using it in Alabama then, but I don't remember us harping on it. I know Jimbo used it to shut down receivers in the middle of practice and keep guys fresh. That year they had the big run and beat Auburn, but that's the first time it really came onto my radar, and it's surged since then, but it's a little bit plateaued now for me where I mean, I look at it, I get an email every night with it on there. There's not a night that I don't look through it and see if anything pops out at me or glares or is glaring. But I didn't remember the second part of the question is like, where do we measure it more, or would we ever measure it more than coaching?
No, not how do you make sure you're not sort of over measuring the little stuff, I guess you could say, the data?
I don't think we would never. Some teams might. I don't overdo it because I just don't look at it that much. I mean, it comes up in our staff meeting, and if a guy pulls, a guy's running track team, and we're trying to measure how much volume he has, it's really important. But it's not as important in spring because we have a day off between every practice. So you can imagine that day does not, because we're taking tomorrow off. Now in season, that's a lot more volume because we're practicing every day.
Thanks, Coach Smart. Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Kirby.
Have a
Thanks,
good rest of the day.